we're going to start our discussion with surrealism with discussing Salvador Dali. Now let's notice that our learning target today is I can understand how our artistic choices are influenced by context. So because of that, because we're looking at how the artistic choices are influenced by context, we're going to be talking about Salvador Dali's life. Now, he was a weird guy. So first of all, let's take a look at our timeline. We've already talked about Impressionism, Post-Impressionism, and Cubism. And now we are dipping into Surrealism, which followed Cubism after Post-Impressionism opened up the freedom of art meaning whatever it wanted, and Cubism pushed that limit. Surrealism had the free reign to really go nuts with what they wanted to do. Breaking down the word surrealism, the first three letters, sur, is a French prefix that means over. So you're looking at over-realism. It's this idea that art can be made to look realistic, whereas the context is actually anything but. It's on top of realistic. This is the most famous surrealist painting. Hopefully you've seen it. If nothing else, you've seen it in my classroom like once. This is Salvador Dali's Persistence of Memory. And I want you to briefly take a look at what you see here. We've got melting clocks, of course. That's what it's most famous for. We've got a fly on the melting clock. This weird thing is actually a portion of a face. That's an eyelash right there. It's like someone took part of their face and just sucked it right off. And then you've got, a metal plaque and some water in the distance. So this is painted realistically, but it is not a real scene. It's the essence of the meaning of the word surrealism in that way. Now, these melting clocks were very popular. Even in Salvador Dali's time, this painting, Persistence of Memory, was his most popular. And so he kept going with the melting clocks, breaking clocks idea. So we've got here a really cool recreation, continuation even, of that idea. And here he is. Here's the man himself, Salvador Dali. And you can see from his choice in facial hair, he really leaned into being a weird, wacky, eccentric guy. So he was a painter, a sculptor, and a filmmaker. He was a commercial sensation, which means that he not only made a lot of money, but he was very well known. He would have been extremely viral in today's internet world. And he was an eccentric individual. Eccentric is a word that means they're crazy, but it's not because their brain is ill. It's not crazy like a doctor's going to give you medicine to help medicate and help you live within the world. It's eccentric is crazy like wearing your pants on your head kind of thing. He is the best known surrealist out of all of them, and he studied traditional art. He went to school for art. He really did well with his normal, expected, realistic art scholarship. He survived a very difficult childhood. There was a lot of death and decay and abuse in his childhood. It was a very difficult time. And he also loved the theories of Sigmund Freud. Now, Sigmund Freud, you may or may not have heard of him. If you have, you've probably heard of a lot of his theories about parents. If you haven't, what I want you to know is that Sigmund Freud really believed that dreams are the windows to a person's conscience and soul. That what they think of while they're asleep is really the truest sense of themselves. And so he used this idea, this theory of dreams, as a basis for his art. Now at this point in time, I would like you to pause this video, and in the description of my YouTube video, I have a link to this video. If you were in the classroom, we'd stop and we'd watch it right now. So please pause, watch that video, and then come back to this one so that we can go through your worksheet. Speaking of your worksheet, you should have this guy with you. whether you're a distance learner who got it from their bag or whether you're one of my Thursday students and I gave it to you on Tuesday, you should have this worksheet. You'll notice that there are 5 questions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and each of them have the name of an artwork, except for this last one that says Dali starring in commercials. And you'll notice the directions say for each work of art, mark the answer that provides the most correct context. A, B, C, D, and E are facts that we learned about either from me talking before or from the video you just watched. Let's go through them together. A says Dali read Sigmund Freud's The Interpretation of Dreams attentively. It assured that dreams were the most important key to the mind. B, Dali's childhood was full of death and child abuse. C, Dali attended art school as a teenager and was passionate about the traditional masters. D, Dali lived and worked in the 1900s when artists had to make professional names for themselves and compete with a commercial world. And E, as a European, Dali lived through World War II and produced art during the Atomic Age, which was a world that had witnessed nuclear bombs. You'll notice that those 5 options exist in all 5 of the artworks. So one option is going to go to each answer. You'll use each answer once. And what we're going to do now is pop back to our presentation and look at those works of art. I want you to pick which one goes to which context. Here's our first one. This is called Remorse. It's painted in 1931. And this is also known as Dali's Sphinx. Now, if you look at this closely, you can see images of Spanish cliffs. There's a glass of milk and a shoe inside of her dress. And so think about what you see. You see a sad woman crying. And nearby you see Spanish cliffs representing where he lives. Next, you need to think about what's odd about the piece. And then think about looking at those 5 context options, which of them most connects to this image of sorrow. Let's look at the next one. Oh, this one's actually going to be connected. This is the same one, same question. This one is called Anthropomorphic Cabinet. So you see here a person, which is actually a cabinet, and look at the way their muscles and their hands and their body and their face are twisted and straining and in pain. And it's again very sad and sorrowful and hurt, almost like they're pushing away in fear. You've got this hair dripping down the cabinet. So what do you think this Remorse and the Anthropomorphic Cabinet mean? Okay, what context influenced them? Let's look at our next one. This is called Activism at Twilight. And we can see here the skeleton man, this farmer woman, and we can see farm tools sticking out of odd places of their body. And the interesting thing is this is a very close reference to Jean-François Millet's Angelus, which is this painting. And Jean-François Millet is a realist painter, one of the best realist painters, right at the end of the realism movement. So it's very similar. You can see the same pitchfork is right there. This thingy is right there. The man is now dead, but he's still there. You know, there's a lot of very close similarities. So what context, which of those 5 options is going to influence Dali to create a recreation, an altered recreation of this famous artwork? Our next one is sleep. Now, this one I want to tell a quick story about. So you can see this face, this sleeping, dragged out face, and it's held up by crutches. Everything is extremely fragile. Look how thin these crutches are compared to how heavy the face looks. And you can tell it's heavy because the nose is dragging, the forehead's dragging. Everything looks weighted, very heavy. So Dali was obsessed with dreams, as I had mentioned, and he very much was interested in this fragile liminal space between being awake and being asleep. He would hold a metal bowl. Oh, let me back up. He lives in Spain, right? And so in Spain, there's siesta time. And I wish we had it in the U.S. After lunch, everything stops and nobody does anything because it's time for siesta, which means nap. The whole country, adults and children alike, have a nap time right after lunch. And so Dali, after his own lunch, he'd eat really big lunch, and he'd sit in the kitchen with a metal bowl in his lap and a wooden spoon in his hand. And he would just slowly let himself fall asleep. And maybe if you've ever fallen asleep in class, you've noticed that weird moment where reality and your dream are mixing. Happens to me specifically when I'm falling asleep in class. And so that was the moment Dali lived for. He loved that moment. So what would happen is as his body would fall asleep, his hand would loosen his grip on the wooden spoon. It would clatter in the bowl and wake him up. So he was able to remember his dream right as it was happening. So this is kind of referencing that with these fragile crutches that can break any moment. So if that didn't give it away already, which context do you think connects most with this picture? All right, now this one, I don't want to run out of time, so I'm going to kind of go quickly, but you can see 3 images. They look similar to heads, right? Let's look at what the images are. We've got this one, and this one that are all the shape of heads. This one looks like a tree. These ones look like explosions. Now, it's called the 3 Sphinxes of Bikini, and we need to talk about that. The word bikini, like the swimsuit, comes from the place called Bikini Atoll. Bikini Atoll is an island, and it's an island where the U.S. tested atomic bombs. They exploded 23 atomic bombs on Bikini Atoll in order to test their weapons, right? And so everybody knew about it, and it was very terrifying, especially to see what happened to that island after receiving 23 atomic bombs. In fact, if you've ever wondered why SpongeBob is set in a place called Bikini Bottom, it's also referencing this same island and how the effects of the atomic tests would have changed and mutated the animals underneath the ocean, including sponges and things like that. But back to this. Think about the 3 Sphinxes of Bikini. Which context is going to influence this artistic choice? This is another one connected to the same thing. This is Dali's wife, Gala, and he loves her dearly. But Gala is broken up. The color only exists in these little spheres, and she is broken up into pieces. So thinking about that, what else is broken up into pieces? What in the 1940s are they aware of that everything is made out of and everything kind of explodes? And yes, it's atoms. These are atoms that are moving fast through her body. So you can see the motion of the atoms. He's showing not only Gala, his wife, but the very atoms that create her. Really cool. And now we get to the commercials. So at this point in time, I need you to, well, when my video's over, you're going to click the second link in the description, which is for this YouTube video that I'm not going to click so I don't get arrested. It is a series of commercials that Dali participated in 1968 and other years. Now, some of them are in English, some of them are not. Remember, Dali lived in Spain, and so a lot of his work was in Spanish in Spain, although he was popular all around the world, so some of it is in English to reach other audiences. So watch these commercials, enjoy the weirdness of Salvador Dali in 1968, and then answer the questions on your worksheet. Again, this is them. Bum, bum, ba-dum, bum, bum. And bring those to school for me. Bring them to school. Thank you so much, and good luck.